Hello again, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Rural Report. I am your Rural 2IC, and today I'm going to do another video where we're going to answer some of the questions that you have sent in. And I recently put on the Facebook page, which, if you are not following, that is growing at a very exponential pace, if you will. I put a thing on there that I'm going to be making some content, and hey, is there anybody out there that would like some things answered or want to see? And the first one, and I'm going to share this with a bit of concealment, if you will. I don't want to give out pictures and names and things like that. But if I move over, and I'll put it right here, this comes from Tony, which reads, what's everybody preparing for? Seriously, the BS coming out from every direction. Short term, I'm concerned about the civil unrest. See France, Iran, Sri Lanka. Completely agree, and we'll get into that in a second. Long term, I'm worried about food availability. The federal government is reporting the lowest crop production in 4 years due to weather and fertilization issues. Now, we'll get into all that. That's a lot to unpack. But to kind of go into it a little bit further and I'll step over again, we'll refer to this person as B. And this one just kind of sums up in a very broad sense. How do we prepare for it all? And so I want to thank everybody that did chime in. I picked these ones out. But to answer B's question first, how do you prepare for it all? Well, the simple answer to that is you don't. Nobody, nowhere on the planet at any given time is prepared for absolutely everything. So sorry to burst your bubble, but I will give you some good news. Now, this channel I created to help people that is thinking about joining the preparedness community or just getting started, or even some of the people that are a little bit into it a little bit, that kind of want to come back and revisit some of the new stuff to kind of sharpen some skills. So that being said, if you are just getting into this and you have that question like B posted, how do you prepare for it all? Well, first of all, you can't. So what you're going to do is you're going to cover your basics. And the way that I like to get people into getting everything to a mindset where you can think about it is, you obviously have come to the realization that you want to prepare. Now, the question is what do you want to prepare for? And sometimes you'll get realistic answers. Sometimes you'll get more of the Hollywood answers or whatnot. And you kind of have to guide and do some things like that. And if you're watching this and you're more of the, been in this for a long time, this is an opportunity for you to shine and kind of help people and steer them in that right direction. You do not want to have somebody that has been living life for 30 years and all of a sudden they want to prep for the zombie apocalypse. Now, in one sense of the manner, yes, to have something to prepare for, a reason, that's great. And sometimes preparing for that kind of a maybe silly idea, maybe not, we are living in 2023. If you want to prepare for zombies or aliens or whatnot, and you want to make it fun, it's one of them things that you can get the entire family and the kids involved in a very fun way. It's fine. You got to do it to where it works for you. Not everybody's the same. Some people need to take it as a very realistic goal. They need to put everything down on paper. They need to have game plans and action points and how do we measure and all that. And that's what works for them on all of the aspects of their life, whether it's job or groceries or whatnot. Some people can't do that. And so you have to make sure that you are open to letting people do what they normally do. So if you're one of them people that you have a chaotic mess, but it's your mess and you know what's going on and that works for you, I understand it to a certain degree. And if that works, that works. I would rather you prep in some sense of the fashion to get started. You can go like most people in the preparedness community, and you're going to learn along the way. You're going to figure out what works, what doesn't work. You're going to find mistakes. You're going to find strengths and weaknesses. And This is kind of why I made the Facebook page. This is why I came and did a YouTube channel. So that way we can share successes and failures. I can try something out and come to you and say, hey, this worked, this didn't work. You guys have given me a lot of great things. I recently did something in the garden that I was going to do. Somebody gave me a great idea. Figured, why not? Let's go ahead and try it. We're not at the end. I haven't done harvest yet, but so far it's working out phenomenal. So I thank you for that. I'm not an absolute top tier world renowned expert when it comes to prepping, not by any means. So I'm learning along the lines, with you guys. You guys give me what worked for you and what didn't work. Sometimes what didn't work for you, I can make a small modification and make it work for me. And that's where this community stuff really comes into it. But getting back to that, on what you're doing, you're going to find out what you're going to prepare for. And the way that I like to look at it is you're going to do what is probable versus possible. And you can write this on paper. You can go in and do it in your head, talk it out with significant other, friends, family, your mag, whatever. And you talk it out. And when I say things like probable versus possible, you want to do probable, things that have a higher chance statistically for you to be involved in. Now, that's going to be anything from an illness. Everybody's going to get ill at some point in time. Injury. Again, you're going to get injured at some point in time. You're going to go through anything from a job loss, car troubles, financial troubles. You're going to get into anything that is Mother Nature. So you're going to have a flood, a fire, a hurricane, anything like that. Then you start getting into if you can do some days without power, whether that's warm weather or cold weather. Can you survive without Wi-Fi? I know there will be a few of you that will laugh, but trust me, there's quite a few people out there that I don't know if they could go the whole weekend if they didn't have a Wi-Fi signal. So you need to look at that list. Now, when you get there, you start. And it's one of those things that you need to kind of look into it. I know I posted a couple of little fun sayings over on my Facebook page. One of them is something along the lines that, the biggest garden and the best looking, most beautiful, most abundant garden that there is, all started the same with one single seed. You just have to get started. So if you've made your mind up today, or you made it up last week and you're new to this, start. Buy one can, buy an extra Band-Aid, buy an extra bottle of water. Start. That's the hardest step to just about anything in life, whether it be prepping or anything. Take that first initial step and build from there. And then you need to start learning not only the things that you need, but you also need to learn the skills that you need. But one of the big things that's gone pretty big on my page, I posted the saying that prepping is not about having the most, it's about putting you in position to where you need the least. And that really speaks a lot of volume for me, and that's why I posted it, but it spoke a lot to you guys as well. I think the last I checked, it's been up for 7-ish days now, and it's got 400 plus reactions and different shares and comments and whatnot. But it still speaks into that. The amount of skill and knowledge can make up for a lot of gear. Now, I'm not saying that you don't need gear, but you need to have the right gear for the job. And really, a lot of it is kind of that one that if you go onto a lot of prepping channels, they'll tell you, take a weekend, shut the power off. And then you'll be able to find what it is on where your weaknesses are. What is it that you didn't foresee, or what could you get that would make things a little easier? And I see a lot of people, especially they'll watch a lot of review things on these channels. And what will happen is they give a really great review, and a lot of those you have to be very careful that it's not a paid review, because I don't think you're quite getting the honesty out of it. But if you watch a review and they go into it and they just put a lot of passion, it's the greatest thing there ever was, and you run out and you buy it, do you really need that? When it comes to buying gear or buying some sort of gadget or tool or whatnot, make sure that you got it because it's something that you needed to fill a gap. It is an instrument that you can use in this situation and not a what if. I see a lot of people that they will run out and they will buy a claw hook that they'll tie to a rope so that way they can toss it up into a tree and scale. When are you ever going to use that realistically? You might as well spend the money and bought extra food or water or, just about anything else. I don't know why most people would need that unless you just have a bunch of money just laying around. But to go a little bit further over into what Tony said, what I'm going to do, because there's a lot of people that I have spoken to, and I will post this kind of around me in some sort of a fashion, but I'd say most people know what's going on in France. And I took each one of the ones that he gave reference to. I did a Google search and put crisis in and put the country. And so I did crisis in France, and there's all the responses. Then I took and I put crisis in Iran. There's all the responses. Then I went and put crisis in Sri Lanka. Here's all the responses. There's a lot that's going on all over the world. There's a few that I'm looking into. There's the top 10 humanitarian crisis, and there's a bunch of things going on all around the world. And I get it to Tony's point of view. There's so much going on that it's hard to focus and know what to prepare for. One of the biggest mistakes I see to people with new prepping is that they tend to want to turn off the news. And for me, I'm an argumentative point of view of no, you can't do that, because if you're not informed, you don't know what you're preparing for in the first place. You can't really properly prep for a flood if you don't know it's going to flood. You can have the supplies there, but if it comes out of nowhere, where's all your stuff? Is it all out in the garage and you got to wade through 3 feet of water to go get it? So I would really argue to watch the news and look at current events and look at local, look at your state, look at your country, look at geopolitical all around the world. You need to know what's going on so you're better informed, so you make better decisions. Now, to move into the second part of Tony's concerns, I'm doing a lot of deep dive into the food crisis because there is a ton of stuff. I knew that there was a few things. There was the corn, the vegetable oil. There was something else. I knew that was kind of bouncing around in my head. And then I was like, well, let's go ahead. I wanted to be informative when I do this video. And holy cow, there was a lot more than what I really intended. So I will probably be doing another video here shortly on all that, because they had everything from champagne, which I know that's probably not concerning to most of you, but they had beef and baby formula and just all sorts of things, eggs, and what I mentioned on the corn. I mean, corn is a huge staple in a lot of things, and that's everything from food to what you do with ethanol for your blend and fuels. There's a lot of stuff that goes into corn. It's in a lot of pet foods and various other things. So to have a shortage on corn is very, very concerning. We'll go into a deeper dive into that. But let's go ahead and let me wrap this up and answer the questions the best I can in the shortest amount of everything. So how do you prepare for it all? Well, you don't. Okay, we covered that. You don't. You need to pick, what's probably going to statistically happen to you and start from there. And then you build on it. You start at one day. Can you do one day in this event? Once you're satisfied that you can, move it to 3 days. Move it to 7 and keep building until you get to a good amount of time. Whether that's at least a year or at least 2 years. I would argue 2 years is best, But if you can get to a year, that's a really, really good starting point. Now to move over to Tony's, I understand it's hard. To make content, it's very hard. To try and do one subject and you get into a massive deep dive and you put a lot of time and everything into this. I've got a full-time job, a family, a kid to spend time with. I've got neighbors that, I've got to help. There's a lot that I'm doing in my life, and to sit down and take time to go through all these, because I feel it's my responsibility as a content creator to come to you and be as informed as possible. So I'm doing my best. But as far as food, get out and plant. Do something to plant food. Get away from the system as best as you can. Now, I'm not saying go completely off grid. Now, I know my hat, if you can see it, does say off grid. That is my goal, is to go off grid. But while a tool is there, use it. Even though that tool might be gone, the internet, electricity and stuff, maybe this time next year we won't have it. It doesn't mean that you should give it up today. Use it to your advantage right now. So look at YouTube videos, look up articles, look up what you can to learn skills. If you've never grown anything, perfect time to learn right now. Seeds, as far as I know, are relatively cheap and still pretty decent to find. But start out with something. I know that there's a lot of excuses out there, and I'm actually going to try and bring on one of my friends who is going to do some content of her own, but we were talking about doing apartment, so that way you don't have the excuse, why live in an apartment, I can't prep. So hopefully she'll be able to do that and squash that myth. But with that,